Good evening, everyone. Last week we started the Chapter 8, the Internet and its services. In the first part of the lesson, we discuss the topic by defining the term Internet, and then we came to the historical evolution of the Internet. Under that, we discuss ARPANET, www, etc., and its future. Then we have taken various parties involved in the Internet community, and next came myths about the Internet and types of communication, and lastly Internet services. Today actually we have to start with social networking, right? So when it comes to social networking, right, what do you mean by social networking? Yes, anyone? So there are so many examples for that, right? We have Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Flickr, Dig, and there are so many varieties of social media. So if we are gonna use the platform where you and me, the society, the people of the society are allowed to get do the communication and dissemination of their information and the social and if it facilitates the social gathering, of course we will call it as a social networking sites, right? So here we say social networking sites create a community for individuals with a common interest. Here what happens is it creates a community of individuals that with common interest, right? For example, if you take in certain professions, like let's say for university lecturers, and they can create their own community with their interest. If the people are interested on conservation of the nature, so then they get together and form certain groups, right? So that here they have given the examples: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn allow people to post information about themselves, right? And again, there are certain sites for video and photo sharing, like YouTube, Flickr, etc. Then collaborative news communities, right? Create and disseminate news, and social bookmarking, and used for politics and business, especially the social book and business networking sites, family networking sites, etc. And users should be careful not to reveal too much about themselves for safety reasons. Yes, because here what the reason for not to reveal the too much of information is on the internet, on the social media. We are working on a faceless environment, right? So that means you don't see who is in the other end of the network. So that so there are so many fake profiles you find on the internet. There are every type of personalities, right? So that there may be some people with the criminal element, right? So people having this bad intention to get into other systems supposedly and have their information gathering, and this kind of a ill-fated mindset. There are some people are behave. They don't care about the legal situation in the country, the societal aspect of it. Even they don't have simple decency in their life, right? They are behaving like absolute idiots. So that's why you should be very careful on revealing this information on the social networking site. So අද අපිට පටන් ගන්න තියෙන social networking sites, social networking. එතකොට social networking sites කියලා කියන්නේ පොදුවේ අපිට කණ්ඩායමක් විදිහට සමාජගත කණ්ඩායමක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න හැකියාව ලැබෙනවා ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකේ. එකම බොහෝ විට එක හා සමාන ඉන්ට්‍රෙස්ට්, එක හා සමාන හා සමාන මේ ආශාවක් නැති අය. ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් කියන්නේ එයා ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක උනන්දු වෙන එක හා සමාන විෂයන් සම්බන්ධ උනන්දුව දක්වන්නන්ට ඒකට එකතු වෙලා උන්ට එක කමියුනිටි එකක් ක්‍රියේට් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ අවස්ථාවන් දෙන වෙබ්සයිට්ස් වලට අපි කියනවා සෝෂල් නෙට්වර්කින් වෙබ්සයිට්ස් කියලා. උදාහරණයක් ඇටියට ගත්තොත් Twitter කියන්නේ ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් මේ කෙටි පණිවිඩ යවන්න පුළුවන්. Facebook කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ බොහෝ විට දන්නවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ සියලු දෙනාම Facebook community එකේ සමාජිකයෝ. ඔයාලට ෂෙයා කරන්න පුළුවන් hell a lot of information. ගොඩාක් තොරතුරු මේ හරහා ෂෙයා කරන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් අපි LinkedIn ගත්තට ඒක වෙනමම ස්වරූපයක් තියෙනවා. ඔයගලන්ට පබ්ලිෂ් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයගොල්ලෝ interested area ගැන ඒ වගේ මේකට employment related. So they have coupled with this employment creation and disseminate the information in that aspect, right? එතකොට මේක people to post information about themselves. ඔයගලන්ට පුළුවන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගැන තොරතුරු මේ හරහා ලෝකෙට මුදාහරින්න. ඒ වගේම වීඩියෝ and photo share YouTube වගේ ගත්තොත් Flickr වගේ ගත්තොත් YouTube ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම වීඩියෝ content creation and dissemination කියන්නේ වීඩියෝ ක්‍රියේට් කරලා ඔයගලන්ට බෙදාහරින්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම Flickr ගත්තොත් අපි කියන මේ pictures එහෙම නැත්නම් පින්තූර සම්බන්ධ ඔයගලන්ට කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ collaborative niche communities අපි dig කියලා කියන එක. ඊට පස්සේ තියෙන social bookmarking. ඊට පස්සේ තියෙන there are some social networking sites for business networking and the family networking sites. So වැදගත්ම කාරණය තමයි මෙතනදී users should be careful not to reveal too much about themselves for safety reasons. ඒ කියන්නේ බොහෝ විට ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකට ආවට පස්සේ අපි දන්නවා මේක මේ පාඩම් පටන් ගනිද්දීම මම කියන්නේ දුනා මේක කිසිම කෙනෙකුගේ පාලනයෙන් තොරව කිසිම කෙනෙකුගේ තනි අයිතියට යටත් නොවන අතිවිශාල දවන්ත නෙට්වර්ක් එකක්. ඒ නිසා බොහෝ විට මිනිසු ඒ කියන්නේ ක්‍රිමිනල් ඉන්ටෙන්ෂන් තියෙන අපරාධයේ මනසක් තියෙන මිනිස්සු ඊටාත්ම පහත් ඇසිරීම මෙහි පෙන්නනවා. හරි. ඒ කියන්නේ අනුන්ගේ කිසිදු අවසරයකින් තුව බලහත්කාරයෙන් වෙන කෙනෙකුගේ සිස්ටම් එකකට ලොග් වෙන්න, ඒ තොරතුරු ගන්න, ඒ තොරතුරු වෙනස් කරන්න, Tamanට කිසිදු නීත්‍යානුකූල අයිතියක් නැති අපරාධකාරයෝ විදියට හැසිරෙන පුද්ගලයන් ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකේ ඉන්න. නිසා අපි මේක පරිහරණය කරන්න වශයෙන් අපිට තාමත්ම පරිස්සම් වෙන්න වෙනවා. නිසා අපි අනවශ්‍ය විදියට තොරතුරු මේක උදාහරින්න තාමත්ම අනුතරදායක. ඒ නිසා මේ වගේ අපරාධකාරයෙන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් හැම විටම මේ අවශ්‍ය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න ඕන. ඔවුන් නීති හමුවට ගන්න ඕනේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවශ්‍ය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න. නමුත් අවශ්‍යම තොරතුරු පමණක් social networking වලදී පාවිච්චි කරන්න අනවශ්‍ය කිසිදු තොරතුරක් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට විරුද්ධව පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඉඩ තියන්න එපා. Then when it comes to Facebook, there are about 2.8 billion active Facebook users in the world, right? As you can imagine, right? The total what is the total population in the world? It's about it's more than 6 billion by now, right? So that almost 45%, almost 50% of the population are part of the Facebook community today, right? You can understand how huge this market would be, right? A person access FB on average 8 times a day. So that as they have mentioned, so every person who are part and partial, the member of the Facebook community, right? He access the Facebook on average 8 times a day. 8 times a day he access the internet. Then 73% marketers would say FB is their most important social media channel. So that when it comes to the marketing, right, marketing is 73%, right? To 4/3 of the marketers would say that FB is the most important social media channel for them. So 50% of the FB users regularly visit business or brand pages. So 50% of the FB users regularly visit the business and brand pages, and 42% of the marketers would say FB is critical for their business. අපි Facebook ගත්තාම අපි ඔක්කොම දන්නවා අතිශයින්ම ප්‍රබල social networking මාධ්‍යයක් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ වෙනකොට ලෝකේ 2.8 billion users ලා ඉන්නවා Facebook එකේ. කියන්නේ ලෝක ජනගහනය මේ වෙනකොට 6 billion ඉක්මවලා තියෙනවා. ඒකෙන් 50%ට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක්, කියන්නේ 2.85 billion, right, are members of the Facebook community. It's a huge market. So Facebook පරිහරණය කරන්න සාමාන්‍ය පුද්ගලයෙක් අපි ගත්තොත් ඔහු දිනකට සාමාන්‍ය වශයෙන් 8 වතාවක් Facebook එකට access වෙනවා. නමුත් අපි දන්නවා දැන් අපි ළඟ තියෙන smartphone වලට අපි throughout the day we connected, but whenever we want to have access we do so that on average it is about 8 times. කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය දිනකට 8 වතාවක්. තමතර 73% marketers would say FB is their most important social media channel. කට marketing community එකට ආවට පස්සේ social media Facebook තාම ඉහළ ප්‍රබල මාධ්‍යයක් කියලා දෙනවා. උන්ගේ 73%ක් කියනවා FB is most important social media channel. Facebook ආවට පස්සේ ඒක තමයි උන්ගේ සමාජ ජාල වලින් වඩාත්ම හොඳම සමාජ ජාල option එක විදිහට උන් තෝරන්නේ Facebook, right? ඊට පස්සේ 50% of the FB users regularly visit business and brand images. 50%කට වැඩි Facebook පරිහරණය කරන්න ව්‍යාපාර හා brand සන්නාමය, right? brand pages සන්නාමය සහිත පිටු වලට browse කරනවා කියන තමයි හොයාගෙන තියෙන්නේ. තමතර 42% marketers would say FB is critical for their business. marketers දැන් 42ක් කියනවා Facebook එක අතිශයින්ම වැදගත් කියලා උන්ගේ ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතුට. අපි බලමු. දැන් මම පොඩි වීඩියෝ ක්ලිප් එකක් ප්ලේ කරනවා. බලමු මොකද්ද Facebook ගැන කියන්නේ කියලා.
G'day, it's Tim Gentle here, and we're talking social media. Now, when I think of social media, I think of it like the heartbeat of the internet. That's where you participate and how you are perceived in social media. So, what are the benefits? Well, one that I really like is that you get to people at the early stages of the buying cycle. To break that right down, it's like when you're sitting on the couch and you're thinking about going on holiday, you're browsing on your iPad, and slowly but surely little social gems come into your feed. It's a bit like when Dad brought home that Qantas jet. You know, now I'm flying Qantas. So social media isn't all about the now, it's about the early seed. Now also, it can help you with your search engine rankings. How you are perceived and how you participate in social media is part of the algorithm that Google used to rank websites. So, on occasions, you need to get involved in social media just so you get good rankings. Now, it can help increase conversion rates on your shopping cart if you use social videos to, show how to use the products, or maybe reviews about you as a company. These are all things that people look for, and it's called social proof. Now, when we participate in social media, we wear 5 hats. Let's walk through those. The first hat is marketing. That's all about your brand, it's about customer service, about research, and about generating leads. Now, another hat we wear is informative. We want to inform people about, say, an event we've got coming up or a product and service we sell. Now, the other hat that we wear is supportive. We want to support people. We want to encourage them. They might be participating in a fundraising event. We also want to energize people. We want to get people excited. And that's all about social media. And the final one is to listen. Make sure you listen to what your customers are saying and what your competitors are doing. Right, I wanted to leave you with some social media tips to make sure that the effort that you put in, you reap the rewards. All right, we'll start from the very top. I always ask my customers what they want in their social feed. So you need to know what the fish are biting if you want to catch the fish. Now, have top level support. What I mean by that is if you've got a directorship or if you've got management, they need to support social media, because in social media, you have to be able to accept the good, the bad and the ugly. Just like the real world, it's not always going to be positive. And you need to have a policy in place if people say something negative about you. Now, always be transparent and be honest. People want to get the human factor when it comes to social media, and don't let perfection get in the way of progress. So another tip is to be consistent. If you're in a bad mood one day, maybe just pull out of social media and attempt it tomorrow. But at the same time, don't be this one day and that another day. Another thing is website integration. Do you know that you can feed in your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed into your website? That's a fantastic thing. And always measure success. A lot of these social media platforms have insights which tell you what people are looking at, what they're sharing and what they're liking. All right, well, my name's Tim Gentle and I'm one of the Small Business Victoria workshop leaders that put on an array of workshops for you.
All right, so that so that's about the social networking and the Facebook, right? So that when it comes to the social media platforms, as he said in his in that presentation, right? Online shopping and investing is one of the major component of this segment, right? Here we say e-commerce on the online financial transaction. I'm not quite sure whether this is the online financial transaction only. So that when it comes to e-commerce, we can say it is the facilitation of whole process of this commercial transactions from physical world to the virtual world, right? From the information gathering to facilitation of the transaction, every segment of the every part of the activities which carried out on the digital media, right, or the electronic networks, if you want. So that whole process we called it as e-commerce. The e-commerce කියලා කිව්වට පස්සේ අපි ඒක online financial transaction තරක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ කියන්නේ කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් භාණ්ඩයක් සෙවීමේ අවස්ථාවේ සිට ඌට භාණ්ඩය විකුණලා මුදල් ලබා ගන්න අවස්ථාව දක්වා එහෙම නැත්නම් භාණ්ඩය හෝ සේවාව ඌට අතට පත් කිරීම දක්වාම සියලුම කාර්යයන් වල එකතු තමයි e-commerce කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම after sale service කියන්නේ භාණ්ඩ මිලදී ගැනීමෙන් පසු වන සේවාවන් පවා ඇති. එතකොට මේක දැන් අපි සාමාන්‍ය භාණ්ඩයක් මිලදී ගැනීමේදී අපි කියන්නේ ෆිසිකල් වර්ල්ඩ් එක භෞතික ලෝකයේ කරන සියලුම කාර්ය ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එක මත ඉඳගෙන අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ ක්‍රියාවලිය තමයි අපි e-commerce කියලා කියන්නේ. So, but when it comes to the e-commerce, here we say the precautions. Be sure all e-commerce activities are performed via a secure web server, because the earlier we talk about HTTP hypertext transfer protocol. So I told you that the speciality of this protocol, this is the protocol which governs the whole process of the handling the web pages or the websites. So here HTTP special characteristics we discussed. So that means that you can hop from one document to another. So what this HTTPS stands for? Because you know that when you are sending from information from one side to another, so what happens is one computer to another. So what happens is some people might, as earlier I told you, right, intruders or the people with this criminal intention can grab your sensitive piece of information, right? So they may misuse them. For example, your credit card information. So in that sense, it is a pretty much danger for the users as well as for the organization, right? So what they do was they try to make it secure, right? If a site is bearing this HTTPS hypertext transfer protocol secured protocol for that. That means when you are sending information from that site to another, right? So these information are encrypted, right? They were converted to some unknown from any intruders can't grab it. So that kind of even though they can't read it, right? That kind of measurement or security measurement we call HTTPS. So the online shopping, that means purchasing goods and services online, okay, can purchase items via the manufacturers, large businesses, small businesses, etc. Usually paid via the credit card through the options may be available. So when it comes to online shopping, is one of the major component of the whole electronic commerce process. So I told you e-commerce is a huge process, from identifying the customer requirement to the delivery the product or the service to customers. All the activities comes under e-commerce. So that in that case, the online shopping is a one small functionality of the e-commerce, right? Here we say purchasing goods and services online. So that's what we mean the online shopping. So here we can purchase items via manufacturers, large businesses, small businesses, etc. එතකොට online shopping කියන්නේ අර අපි ඉස්සලා කතා කරපු වඩා පුදුල වඩා විශාල e-commerce කියන පද්ධතියේ තියෙන එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක කුඩා කොටසක්. ඒකට අපි කියනවා purchasing goods and services online කියන්නේ අන්තර්ජාලය මත පදනම භාණ්ඩා සේවා මිලදීනීම තමයි online shopping කියන්නේ. ඒකයි e-commerce කියන්නේ එක ප්‍රධාන කාර්යයේදී කුඩා කොටසක්. එතකොට මේදී අපිට පුළුවන් නිෂ්පාදකයන්ගේ large organization නැත්නම් businesses විශාල ව්‍යාපාරිකයන්ගෙන් කුඩා ව්‍යාපාරිකයන් යන ආදී වශයෙන් භාණ්ඩ ආසේවා මිලදී ගන්න. We can pay via the credit card. අපි credit card එක කරා payment කරන්න පුළුවන්. though other payment options are available. ඊට අමතරව විවිධාකාර payment option තියෙනවා. අද අපි මේ දවසේ අපි කතා කරන උගා කියලා ලංකාවේ සිද්ධ වෙන දෙයක් තමයි you pay after you receive the products, right? So once you are deliver the products, you can make the payment. So that option is available in Sri Lanka nowadays, right? So that apart from that, you can pay the credit card, you can pay with the bank transfers, you can pay with digital cash if you wish, right? There are so many options are available. So and again we have the online shopping and investing, right? Under that we can say online auctions. You know that auction site. So auction එකක් කියන්නේ විදේශයක්. ඔයගොල්ලන් දන්නවා දැන් අපි eBay වගේ eBay ගත්තොත් ලෝකයේ තියෙන විශාලතම auction site, right? They are the biggest one. So they buy from individuals, can be done till the auction closes. Buyer arranges payments and delivery with seller pays auction. So here this kind of a business will be called P2P, right? There are no businesses in no. So if you have something unique in your process, you can go to the eBay and post a message regarding this product or service. You can start off selling. So you as a person, you try to sell other persons on that eBay channel, right? So the buy from individual can be done till the auction closes, right? Buyer arrange payments and delivery with seller. Seller pays the auction fees. So that's how it works. Then the online banking, transfer funds, check balances, pay bills, etc. Especially these banking activities, of course, they went online. Most of the banks, almost all the banks in the country, offering online banking services nowadays. By that, they can transfer funds, check balances, pay bills, etc. Right? Then online investing, buy and sell stocks, bonds, and other securities. So online portfolios, some stock quotes are delayed. So here what happens is අපි දන්නවා ඒ වගේම අන්තර්ජාලය මත පතනම් ආයෝජනය කිරීමේ හැකියාව තියෙනවා. ඒ හරහාදී වෙන්නේ මේ රියල් ටයිම් ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන් වලට අමතරව කොල්ලෝ රියල් ටයිම් ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන් හම්බ වෙනවා ස්ටොක් පෝර්ට්ෆෝලියෝස් ගැන වැඩි මුදලක් ගෙවලා ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඒ ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන් ගන්නවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් අඩු මුදලක් ගෙවනවා නම් ස්ටොක් quotes are delayed, right? So that's kind of a tailor-made pricing comes into the information. If these information are hot, information are real time, you are asked to pay more money. But information is old and information are not that hot for your decision making. Of course, you are charged less, right? So that is what we call kind of a dynamic pricing comes into play on the internet, right? So investment is one such area. Then online entertainment, especially online music, online television, online gaming, right? So when it comes to the online music, internet radio station, so you see that there are thousands of radio stations. Even you can start one if you wish. Online music stores used to purchase and download music singles and albums in digital format legally. So that if you wish, you are a music lover, you can buy these tracks, right? Or the albums. Some available legally via peer-to-peer file sharing networks. So we talked about the peer-to-peer networks earlier. There are some available with these networks. Then online TV, online videos, video on demand, live TV, full episode, music news, home videos, etc. VODs, movies and other video content ordered, delivered on the demand, right? Video on demand. And online gaming, games played over the internet, web-based games, online multiplayer games, etc. එතකොට අපි ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එක විශේෂයෙන් ගත්තට පස්සේ අපිට online entertainment වලට පාසුකම් සලසන මේ යටතේ මුලින්ම ගන්න පුළුවන් අපිට online music, එයාද radio station 100,000 ගණනක් තියෙනවා. online music stores අපිට online music store එකකට යනවා නම් Sony වගේ එකකට අපිට music tracks, music albums මිලදී ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම peer-to-peer network කරා file sharing services available. We talk about the peer-to-peer services earlier. And this thing මේවා අපිට ලේසියෙන් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට අමතරව online TV, online videos, video on demand, right? Live TV, full episode, music, news, home videos on demand, like movies and other video content available. අපි දැන් ගත්තාම හුඟක් වෙලාවට ටෙලිවිෂන් channel මේ කාර්යභාරය කරනවා. උන්ගේ සියලුම දේවල් සියලුම වැඩසටහන් මේනකොට ඕගලන්ට අපිට ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙබ් එක මත, right? ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එක මත ඒ සපහසුකම් හා සේවාවන් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට අමතරව online gaming, games played over the internet, right? Web-based games, online multiplayer games, etc. are also available. Then we have the online news, references and information on the internet, right? Online news available through websites, belongs to news organization, television networks, newspapers, magazines, etc. So that the one of the main task of the news creators to disseminate these news items on the internet, right? For that, television channels, newspapers, magazines, each and everyone are having their web information presence here, right? News sites are usually regularly updated throughout the day so that when it comes to these news sites, they disseminate it, or they update their usual news, right, on a regular basis. The news archives are often available, sometimes required a fee. So මිට ඉස්සල්ලා අපිට ලැබුණු තොරතුරු පසු කාලීන පාවිච්චි කිරීම සඳහා ගබඩා කරලා තියන්න පුළුවන් කොහේ මේ තමයි news archives කියලා කියන්නේ, right? Then the reference sites provides access to specific types of useful information, right? Phone and addresses directories, weather maps, home values, encyclopedia, dictionaries, etc. There we call the reference site, right? Online news. Can අන්තර්ජාලය මත ප්‍රවෘත්ති වලට අපට පසිතා විශාල ඉඩකඩක් හදලා තියෙනවා මේ ටෙලිවිෂන් channel, newspapers, magazines වගේ සියලුම දෙනාට උන්ගේ web presence නැත්නම් අන්තර්ජාලය මත උන්ගේ තොරතුරු ලබා දෙන්න වෙබ් පිටු unter websites, right? How do we call it in singular? Web උන්ගේම වෙබ් පිටුව උන් සංවිධානය කරලා තියෙන හරහත් විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් තොරතුරු උන් දිනකට උදාහරණ. එයාගේ news sites ආවට පස්සේ regularly update throughout the day උන්ගේ තියෙන news item දිනපතා, නිතිපතා, right? සමහරට බහුත් අලුත් කරමින් සිටිනවා, right? ඉතාලම අලුත් තොරතුරු ලබා ගන්න ඕන නම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට වෙබ් එකකින් ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එක හරහා ඒවා ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. And news archives are often ඒවට අමතරව මේ පරණ තොරතුරු ඕන එක තැනකට ඒක රාශී කරලා ඒ වගේ තැනක් තමයි අපි news archives කියලා කියන්නේ. යම් සමහර ඒ වෙලට මුදලක් අය කරලා පරණ තොරතුරු ලබා ගන්න ඕන archives වලින් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට අමතරව reference sites. මෙතනදී ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ සහට ඔයගොල්ලෝ රිසර්ච් එකක් එහෙම කරනවා. ඒකට අවශ්‍ය journal articles ලබා ගන්නවා. There are hundreds of thousands of journals available online, even from our university library. There are many options available for you to have access to these hundreds of journals. Services of journals available, right, through the university library. So these are reference site, and again phone and address directories, weather maps, home values, encyclopedias, dictionaries, all these comes under reference sites. Then we have the product, corporate and government information, so that so any organization, whether they are private or public, right, they can offer this information on the internet. I told you that earlier it is more cost effective to have a web presence, and because you can offer unimaginable amount of information, right, at a fraction of the cost of a printed copy. Like so, if you are going to have a glossy magazine for this amount of information, it would cost millions for you, right? But a few thousand rupees you can support with your website all this information, so it is very cost effective. The web is useful tool for locating product and corporate information as well as governmental information and publication. එතකොට මේකදී අපි කියන්නේ ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකට වෙබ් එක ආවට පස්සේ තා විශාල සහයෝගයක් දෙනවා. රජයේ ආයතන වලට පුද්ගලික ආයතනවලට උන්ගේ අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු මහජනයාට ලබා දෙන්න, right? Then we have the censorship and privacy issues, so that the censorship කියන්නේ බල යම් කිසි නිසි බලධාරියෙකු විසින් ඒ තොරතුරු පාලනයකට යටත් කරනවාද කියන එක. ඊට පස්සේ privacy කියලා අපි කියන අපේ පුද්ගලිකත්වයට හානි වෙන නැත්නම් පුද්ගලිකත්වයට බලපෑම් ඇති වෙන දේවල් මොනවාද සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ. So the internet, one such incident is internet filtering. Using the software browser option to block access to particular web pages or types of web pages. So internet filtering බොහෝ විට අපි දන්නවා දැන් authoritarian rulers like in China, right? they do this internet filtering because they don't want to have they don't want people to access any of the information that against the Chinese government or the politics or the political parties they maintain. So that all this information are filtered, and only the good picture of the ruling will be available for the people, right? ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපි ඉන්ටර්නෙට් ෆිල්ටරින් කියලා ගත්තොත් ඒ කියන්නේ එක්තරා සාමාන්‍ය මේක කරන්න පුළුවන් ඉන්නේ රජයකට, රයිට්? ඒතකොට සර්වර් එකට පුළුවන් සර්වර්ස් මේන්ටේන් කරන්නට කියන්න පුළුවන් මේ අනවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු සියල්ල අයින් කරලා අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු ජනතාවට දෙන්න කියලා. ඒතකොට ඒ අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු මොනවාද අනවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු මොනවාද කියලා කියන්නේ රජයේ කොවිට මේ චීනිය වගේ රටවල්. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ ඔතොරිටේරියන්, ඒ කියන්නේ තමන්ගේ තනි මතයට වැඩ කරන රාජ්‍යයන්, රයිට්? ඒ වගේ රාජ්‍යයන් මේ වගේ දේවල් කරනවා උන්ගේ රටට උන්ගේ දේශපාලනයට යම් ආකාරයකට උන්ගේ දේශපාලනඥයට දාලා දේවල් තියෙනවා උන්ගේ වයින් කරනවා. ඒක තමයි ඉන්ටර්නෙට් ෆිල්ටරින් කියලා කියන්නේ. Used by the individuals, schools, employees, public computers etc. ඊට අමතරව අපිට පුළුවන් දැන් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය ගත්තොත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු කරනක් තෝරගෙන දීලා අනිත් ඒවා බැහැර කරන්න ස්කෝල් එකට එම්ප්ලොයිස්ලාට public computer මේ හැම එකට එහෙම can use browser setting or special filtering software. So the censorship කියලා ගත්තොත් මම හිතන්නේ නමුත් අපිට සෙන්සර් කරන්න පුළුවන් එක්තරා විදිහේ ෆිල්ටර් browser එකේ තියෙන setting පාවිච්චි කරන උදාහරණයකට අපි හිතමු ඔයගලන්ට අවශ්‍යයි බ්ලොක් කරන්න pornographic sites on the internet. So that can be done. Like nudity, you can, by selecting the nudity, you can say, okay, not to allow the nudity on this machine. So through the browser, you can limit the access of it. It's a kind of a censorship, right? And web browsing privacy, privacy of the web activities. And here, when it comes to privacy, so one of the major event occurs here is with the cookies, right? So the marketer would say, because it is not allowed to gather the other people's information without knowing them. So any of us don't like to reveal our personal information. Let's say, for example, do you like that other people will get to know what medication you use, how many times you use it for day, from whom you buy it, and these are private information, the personal information, right? But what happens if we buy stuff from online pharmacy? So some other people might be in position to get all this information, what ailments we have, what medications we use, how often we use this, where we get this medication, etc. It's a breach of the privacy, right? So they do it by using the cookies, small files stored on the user's hard drive by a web server. So the web server එකේ ඊටාම කුඩා programs අපේ client machine එකට වන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට ඒක එළනේ station වුණාට පස්සේ මොකද වෙන්නේ? උන් නිරන්තරයෙන් මේ තොරතුරු අරගෙන ඒ server එකට යවන්නේ හරහා උන් අප්ඩේට් කරගන්නවා අපේ තොරතුරු ගැන. මොනවද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ, credit card එක මොනවද යන site මොනවද කරන දේවල් යන ආදි වශයෙන්, right? Can be used to track web activity. As I told you earlier, web එකේ අපි කරන්නේ මොනවද කියන එක ගැන ඒගොල්ලන්ට කරුණු එකතු කරන්න පුළුවන්. Cookies information can be personally identifiable or non-personally identified. ඒතර cookies ආවට පස්සේ අපි පුද්ගලයෙක් විදිහට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන්. මේක පුද්ගලයෙක් විදිහට අඳුර ගන්න නැතුව තොරතුරු ගැද කරන්න පුළුවන්. Cookie data can be viewed or deleted. So cookie data through a browser we can view and delete it. And cookie setting can be changed and software can be used to manage cookies. So through the browser, of course, we can set the cookies of the web browser according to our we can arrange it, right? We can manage it. So either we can block it or we can allow cookies, etc. But the problem is that there are certain websites that ask for cookies. For example, in order to use your LMS, you need to allow some cookies. in your local machine. Sometimes it's a threat. Anyway, censorship and privacy issues. Then we have the web bugs, small, usually visible images on the web page that transit data to a web server. It's something similar to the cookies. Small, usually invisible images on the web page that transmit data to a web server. එතකොට මේකේ තියෙන්නේ invisible images, small invisible images on the web page, and they send the information to the server. Difficult to spot අපිට හැකියාවක් නැහැ ඒක හොයාගන්න. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ website එකේ page එකේ තියෙන software can be used to notify you when the web bugs are being used. එතකොට අපි සාමාන්‍ය අපේ දෙන virus guard එක හරහා තමයි දැනගන්න වෙන්නේ web bugs තියෙනවා කියලා, right? Then we have the spyware, software that transmit the data secretly through the user's internet connection. The spyware කියන spy කියන්නේ රහසිගත තොරතුරු එකතු කරනවට, right? එකතු කරන්නේ එතකොට අපේ machine එකේ ඉඳලා අපේ තොරතුරු එකතු කරලා රහසියෙන්ම යවන්න පුළුවන්. Can be blocked and or moved by security software, the virus guard එකේ. That's why we say that we need a proper virus guard installed in our local machine, right? So that is why we are for that. Then adware, some software supported by on-screen advertising often include pre-programs, right? So that ඔයගොල්ලෝ කරලා මේ නොමිලේ ලබා දෙනවා ගත්තා. අපි එහෙමනේ. අපි නොමිලේ දෙනවා නම් දෙමළ පත්‍රය අරන් එනවා. So that you are asking for trouble, right? So that with the free programs, what they do is they have these adwares, right? Software supported by the advertising, right? එතකොට මේවා අරහත් ඒගොල්ලෝ තොරතුරු එකතු කරනවා. ඊට අමතරව තව එක දෙයක් තියෙනවා, ransomware කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. ransomware කියලා කියන්නේ මේ වගේ අපි ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකේ වැඩ කරගෙන යනකොට එතකොට මේ වගේ cookies එක්තරා විදිහට cookie එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපේ machine එකට අපි යම් ආකාරයක message එකක් අපිට එවනවා. උදාහරණයකට එකපාරට ඔයගොල්ලෝ screen එක pop up වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Your machine is infected with web bugs. Use this software to remove it. तो ये वाके लाट ඔයගොල්ලෝ ක්ලික් කරා මොකද එන්නේ මේ වගේ බග් වෙයා එකක් ඇවිල්ලා ස්ටේෂන් එකවල මැෂින් එතන ඉඳලා සීලුම පාලනය කරන බග් වෙයා මේ what do you call that, the ransomware. तो ransomware එකෙන් කරන්නේ මේ වගේ කුඩා ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එකක් කරා ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ තියෙන සියලුම කම්පියුටර් තියෙන සියලුම ෆයිල් වල පාලනය අතට ගන්නවා. එතකොට එතනින් එහාට ඒ ඔක්කොම එන්ක්‍රිප්ට් කරලා ලොක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට එන්ක්‍රිප්ට් කරලා ලොක් කරාට පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ ෆයිල් වලට ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ඇක්සස් නැහැ. දැන් මොකද කරන්නේ? එතකොට ransomware එවපු කවුරු හරි ඉන්න පණිඩයක් ගන්න පුළුවන් ඊමේල් එකක් කරා. අපි මේක මේ තොරතුරු ආයවට ලබා දෙන්න ඕන. අපිට මෙච්චර මුදලක් ගෙවන්න. So that kind of scenario we call that kind of softwares we call ransomware. Right? This is the scenario where they demand for ransom. Right? Then we have the email privacy of the email messages you send and receive. Right? Only encrypted email can be transmitted privately, and employees and ISPs have access to the email you send through these organizations. Right? And businesses and ISPs typically archive email messages. So email වලට ආවට පස්සේ encrypted email can be transmitted privately. අපි encrypt කරනවා කියන්නේ unknown format convert කරපුවා අපිට privately transfer කරන්න පුළුවන්. Transmit කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම employers and ISPs have access to their email you send through the organizations. ඒතර බොහෝ විට ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ ආයතනයට අදාළව තියෙන mail account වල තියෙන mail සම්බන්ධ access ඒ ආයතනයේ admin ලට තියෙනවා. ඒ ආයතනයේ බොහෝ විට උන්ට හැකියාව තියෙනවා ඒකට access වෙන. නමුත් එතනින් එහාට ගිහලා සමහරවිට ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න පුළුවන් අනවශ්‍ය විදිහේ බාධා ඇති කිරීම කරන්නත් මේ නිසා. So there must be some kind of a policy in any organization how to handle with this information. Of course it's okay, you can monitor so your employees, there is no argument on that, but you should not what you call, they abuse their right. So by doing unwanted, unnecessary, unethical stuff, right? So there must be a policy, but in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, we don't have that kind of a decency with regard to handling this information or these information resources, right? So it's a big problem. Then businesses and ISPs typically archive email messages, so they keep it for a while, for a certain period of time, in case if they needed to have them back, right? Then how to protect, yes, here we asked the question, how to protect your privacy online. අපිට ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එක මතකදී අපි ආරක්ෂා වීමට අපි මොකද්ද කරන්න ඕනේ, right? So here we say, don't fill out your social media profile. So the first thing they say, don't fill out your social media profile. Social media profile එක පුරවන්න එපා. Then turn on private browsing. All the time turn on your private browsing on the for example, right, if you on the browser you have, for example, in my case, right, since I am using the Firefox, here you have new private window, right, extreme corner you have this, and you can start new private browsing, right? So that is there. So use turn on private browser. Use password valve that generates and remembers strong and unique password. Use a password valve and generate and remember strong and unique password. All the time use this unique and strong password. You can unique, you can ලේසියෙන් හිතා ගන්න බැරි, right? ඒකම බොහොම ශක්තිමත් මුරපද පාවිච්චි කරන්න කියලා කියනවා. Use two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication, you know that in order to open up your email account, you can activate the two-factor authentication. That means you can ask your mail service provider to send you a SMS or the email. Through that, you have a two-factor authentication. that අපිට අපේ තොරතුරු email එක පාවිච්චි කරන අපිට two factor authentication activate කරොත් අපි එතකොට අපේ mail service provide කරන ආයතනයට අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් හැමතිස්සෙම මේක open කරනවා මට SMS එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් email එකක් එවන්න කියලා. set up Google alert for your name. ඒ වගේ මට Google alert එකක් එවන්න කියලා හැම වෙලාවකම වගේ තම සඳහන් වෙන දෙයක් web basic දෙනවා alert කරනවා Google. Keep your social network activity private. Social network activity private karana. Limit the personal information you share on social media and limit the personal information. Don't, as I discussed earlier, don't reveal your private information. Don't share your kids' pictures on the internet. Don't have this personal information, right? So good for your security or your health on the internet. Be careful where you click. So every time think before you click on a website or a link. Never click unknown site or the unknown links. And secure your phone, secure your mobile device. So mobile device security you have to implement along with this, and use of virtual private network. So you can use a virtual private network. So that means you have secure, you create a secure path when you are dealing with this open internet or the public network, right? Use proper privacy setting. Privacy settings, of course, you can fortify your privacy by using this privacy setting. So we'll have some important aspect of the privacy on the internet now.
So what do you think?
Looks good, man. Oh, where's the muffler?
I guess I should do a web search to see what would work best for it.
Wait, did you hear something? Oh.
let me guess. Your car bill's almost done, but you don't know shit about mufflers.
Well, I don't...
Mark Zuckerberg, a journalist, was asking him a question about the news feed. And the journalist was asking him, why is this so important? And Zuckerberg said, a squirrel dying in your front yard may be more relevant to your interests right now than people dying in Africa. And I want to talk about what a web based on that idea of relevance might look like. So when I was growing up in a really rural area in Maine, the internet meant something very different to me. It meant a connection to the world. It meant something that would connect us all together. And I was sure that it was going to be great for democracy and for our society. But there's this kind of shift in how information is flowing online. And it's invisible. And if we don't pay attention to it, it could be a real problem. So I first noticed this in a place I spend a lot of time, my Facebook page. I'm progressive politically, big surprise, but I've always gone out of my way to meet conservatives. I like hearing what they're thinking about. I like seeing what they link to. I like learning a thing or two. And so I was kind of surprised when I noticed one day that the conservatives had disappeared from my Facebook feed. And what it turned out was going on was that Facebook was looking at which links I clicked on. And it was noticing that actually I was clicking more on my liberal friends' links than on my conservative friends' links. And without consulting me about it, it had edited them out. They disappeared. So Facebook isn't the only place that's doing this kind of invisible algorithmic editing of the web. Google's doing it too. If I search for something and you search for something, even right now at the very same time, we may get very different search results. Even if you're logged out, one engineer told me, there are 57 signals that Google looks at. Everything from what kind of computer you're on, to what kind of browser you're using, to where you're located, that it uses to personally tailor your query results. Think about it for a second. There is no standard Google anymore. And the funny thing about this is that it's hard to see. You can't see how different your search results are from anyone else's. But a couple of weeks ago, I asked a bunch of friends to Google Egypt and to send me screenshots of what they got. So here's my friend Scott's screenshot. And here's my friend Daniel's screenshot. When you put them side by side, you don't even have to read the links to see how different these two pages are. But when you do read the links, it's really quite remarkable. Daniel didn't get anything about the protests in Egypt at all in his first page of Google results. Scott's results were full of them. And this was the big story of the day at that time. That's how different these results are becoming. So it's not just Google and Facebook either. This is something that's sweeping the web. There are a whole host of companies that are doing this kind of personalization. Yahoo News, the biggest news site on the internet, is now personalized. Different people get different things. Huffington Post, the Washington Post, New York Times, all flirting with personalization in various ways. And where this moves us very quickly toward a world in which the internet is showing us what it thinks we want to see, but not necessarily what we need to see. As Eric Schmidt said, it'll be very hard for people to watch or consume something that has not, in some sense, been tailored for them. So I do think this is a problem. And I think if you take all of these filters together, if you take all of these algorithms, you get what I call a filter bubble. And your filter bubble is kind of your own personal, unique universe of information that you live in online. And what's in your filter bubble depends on who you are, and it depends on what you do. But the thing is that you don't decide what gets in. And more importantly, you don't actually see what gets edited out. So one of the problems with the filter bubble was discovered by some researchers at Netflix. And they were looking at the Netflix queues, and they noticed something kind of funny that a lot of us probably have noticed, which is there's some movies that just sort of zip right up and out to our houses. They enter the queue, they just zip right out. So Iron Man zips right out, right? And waiting for Superman can wait for a really long time. What they discovered was that in our Netflix queues, there's kind of this epic struggle going on between our future aspirational selves and our more impulsive present selves. You know, we all want to be someone who has watched Rashomon. But right now, we want to watch Ace Ventura for the 4th time. So the best editing gives us a bit of both. It gives us a little bit of Justin Bieber and a little bit of Afghanistan. It gives us some information vegetables. It gives us some information dessert. And the challenge with these kind of algorithmic filters, these personalized filters, is that because they're mainly looking at what you click on first, you know, it can throw off that balance. And instead of a balanced information diet, you can end up surrounded by information junk food. So what this suggests is actually that we may have the story about the internet wrong. In a broadcast society, you know, this is how the founding mythology goes, right? In a broadcast society, there were these gatekeepers, the editors, and they controlled the flows of information. And along came the internet, and it swept them out of the way, and it allowed us, all of us, to connect together, and it was awesome. But that's not actually what's happening right now. What we're seeing is more of a passing of the torch from human gatekeepers to algorithmic ones. And the thing is that the algorithms don't yet have the kind of embedded ethics that the editors did. So if algorithms are going to curate the world for us, if they're going to decide what we get to see and what we don't get to see, then we need to make sure that they're not just keyed to relevance. We need to make sure that they also show us things that are uncomfortable, or challenging, or important. This is what TED does, right? Other points of view. And the thing is, we've actually kind of been here before as a society. In 1915, it's not like newspapers were sweating a lot about their civic responsibilities. Then people kind of noticed that they were doing something really important. That in fact, you couldn't have a functioning democracy if citizens didn't get a good flow of information. That the newspapers were critical because they were acting as the filter, and that journalistic ethics developed. It wasn't perfect, but it got us through the last century. And so now, we're kind of back in 1915 on the web. And we need the new gatekeepers to encode that kind of responsibility into the code that they're writing. You know, I know there are a lot of people here from Facebook and from Google, Larry and Sergey, who, you know, people who have helped build the web as it is, and I'm grateful for that. But we really need you to make sure that these algorithms have encoded in them a sense of the public life, a sense of civic responsibility. We need you to make sure that they're transparent enough that we can see what the rules are that determine what gets through our filters. And we need you to give us some control so that we can decide what gets through and what doesn't. Because I think we really need the internet to be that thing that we all dreamed of it being. We need it to connect us all together. We need it to introduce us to new ideas and new people and different perspectives. And it's not going to do that if it leaves us all isolated in a web of one. Thank you.
All right. So here in TED Talk, Ellie Fraser talking about the filter bubble. So there, what happens is that you are not so you are not going to get the information you intended, but the information that is generated by the, especially with these big players like what you call that, Google and Facebook, and they create their own piece of information for us, right? So that That not the information we intended to have. So they created, there is a kind of a bubble they created, so they force us to work with this piece of information. They allow us to do so. It's not a good thing, right? So that we as a human beings, we have our own interest, we have our own piece of decision making and everything. But unfortunately, when these big players like Google and Facebook are not allowing us to do the information gathering and the dissemination and make use of them in a proper manner, it's a kind of a challenge for us. So there should be even now what happens is this the censoring process mainly governed by, as he said, the algorithm, which means part of a computer coding, right? Computer coding, but not the human editors, so that they just only consider the relevancy factor, so nothing else. The machines can't figure it out, the other. So it's a problematic situation, but so that in this case we have to focus our attention on that. That's the so Ali Fraser මොකක්ද කියන්නේ මෙතනදී දැන් අපි ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එක පාවිච්චි කරද්දී බොහෝ විට වෙබ් එක පාවිච්චි කරද්දී social networking sites Facebook ඒවා Facebook ළඟට තියෙනවා 2.85 billion subscriber base එකක් and Google ළඟට තියෙනවා 1.5 billion, so very huge. So these people create a situation where they allow us to have only the information they intend to have. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු විතරක් අපිට නිරාවරණය වෙන්න ඉඩ දෙනවා. මේව ෆිල්ටර් කරලා බහලා ගන්න. ඒකට තමයි ඒක ෆිල්ටර් බබල් කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒතර මෙතනදී සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ අපිට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු නෙමෙයි Google ලට ඕන තොරතුරු. එහෙම නැත්නම් Facebook ආයතනයට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු තමයි අපිට ලැබෙන්නේ. අපි සර්ච් කරාට ඒගොල්ලන්ට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු. එතකොට අපිට අවශ්‍ය නිදහස් තීරණ ගැනීමට අපිට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු ලබා ගැනීම තියෙන ඊට මේ යම් ආකාරයක ඇහිදීමක් වෙනවා. මේවා ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් අපේ ප්‍රයිවසි එකට ආවට පස්සේ බාධාවක්. ඒතර මේ පිළිබඳ ඉතා මම හිතන්නේ සාකච්ඡාවක් අවශ්‍යයි. ඒක තමයි මේ TED Talk එකේ හරියම, right? So that next we have so this again just how to get over the fear of judgment on the internet. This is the speech given by the Gary Vee, so that I don't think that we have the time to completely watch this video clip. Anyway, I will play. So if it is exceed 1.5 hours, so that we'll cut it off and you can leisurely watch it, and we'll have that available on the LMS, right? So I will come back to this one, so that lastly, so that in this lesson we talk about the evolution of the internet. To sum up what we have done in this lesson, right? So we talk about the evolution of the internet and the future, and various parties involved in the internet community, and the device connection options for the internet, and the services available on the internet, and the censorship and privacy issues. And there are some review questions available. If you have free time, please try to answer this then. And now I will last the lesson by playing this video clip. Thank you very much.
Time to scout.
We really need to have a conversation in here about judgment. The far majority of you will not go home today and start posting more on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, not because you don't get, I love when people are like, Gary, I didn't grow up with this technology. I don't get it. I'm like, that's nice, Sue. You didn't grow up driving and you figured it out. It is very cute that you tell me you didn't grow up with this and that's why you don't get it. I am wildly smart enough to understand that you are bright enough to spend 2 hours on an app to figure it out. The reason you're not posting or doing is because there's insecurity about what you're going to say. You got your perspective. I just want to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? The fact that we sit here in 2020 in the maturity of the social web and these opportunities, and there are still 2 platforms right this second that require $0 for you to start communicating what you want to happen in the world, I think is remarkable. That doesn't even take into account the fact that Facebook ads, YouTube pre-rolls, this new Spotify ad product that is going to have hosts read live reads like the old radio game for podcasts, Facebook, all Twitter. Twitter's appropriately priced, but everything else I just mentioned to you, the ads are underpriced. The cost of spending $1,000 on these platforms to get people to see something is underpriced. I really am desperate, with even the tone and tenor that I'm bringing to this talk, I'm desperate for people to understand how wild this is. I want to remind everybody, for everybody who raised their hand in the first group like myself, the way you built a business or brought awareness, if you're 43 and older, in the way we grew up, was by spending a lot of money. Ads cost money. Direct mail, newspaper, radio ads, television, that costs money. It was a very high cost of entry to build brand. Brand is the whole game. I think when I analyze what's going on in the business world and with people, I think most people are transactional. I believe, how many people here are entrepreneurs? Raise your hands. I believe the majority of the hands that just went up, that when I look at the delta between the ones who've won and the ones who've won less than they've wanted to, I put them always in my mind into 2 groups. One group is transactional, AKA deeply care about the money in the short term, and the second group is looking to build brand, AKA reputation in perpetuity, and are more concerned about playing it out in the long term. What is exciting for me right now is that this device, like the fact from this young man down and up, every one of us has a device in our hand that is a computer that is actually more powerful than the computer that Ronald Reagan had when he was running the free world. It really is interesting. It really is. I think, again, what I'm really trying to establish in this talk this afternoon, this morning, is I don't think people have quantified the opportunity. I struggle, regardless of circumstance, with people dwelling or complaining in a world where the internet is free, has no idea who you are, could care less. It's right there, and it becomes a game of skill, not necessarily finances, to actually win. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that you can be in the retail business overnight by setting up a Shopify account, which costs nothing, when that same action to sell something 30 years ago meant that you had to sign a lease and build out a store and rely on the local traffic that walked by. It scares me and excites me that the biggest music company in the world, Spotify, was built in Sweden by a kid. And on and on and on, and you've heard every story. But more importantly, for every ridiculous story we've seen of Instagram or Facebook or Uber or Spotify, there are hundreds of thousands of stories of people with wins that are micro-versions. I actually think the most healthy thing in entrepreneurship and opportunity is the big stories that everybody thinks they have to build a billion-dollar company. I think we do not talk enough about the practical $150,000 a year, $300,000 a year, $700,000 a year business that you genuinely love what you do, and you can live your life being happy and financially sound, and what the cost of entry to be able to do that is in today's environment, which, once again, let me say, very thorough. Between putting out a media company, if you decide to put that on a WordPress or Squarespace, a retail company, on the back of a Shopify. You could start a radio show that is global on the back of just uploading something you record on your memos on your phone and upload on Spotify and Apple and SoundCloud. My friend, distribution is free. I know it's a nerdy thing. It's not a big, profound statement, but let me say it nice and slow. Distribution is free. It used to cost a fortune. Now what you put inside of it is the variable of your success, not your financial capabilities to create the distribution. You have, I wish we could zoom in. I literally have goosebumps on my neck right now. No, but really, I really do. It's like a very, I will live my last breath trying to get people to understand this is remarkable. This is a game of perspective. Are you educated or capable of seeing it from the lens that I'm speaking about today, which is the barrier to reach the end person, whether you're a financial advisor and trying to get to a client, whether you sell bow ties, whether you want to be, how about the fact that you want to be a professional football player and now there's all these websites where you can upload your film because the scout didn't come to your tiny, tiny town and now you actually can be discovered. Like, everything has changed. My question and my dream every time I speak is, can I get one person in this room to get their piece? For me, if you are not disproportionately happy sitting in this room professionally, which will trickle into your actual life, you have to take a step back and understand this perspective. So I think we're living through the greatest era ever for opportunity. I think it's on the back of the current internet, which is wildly visual. I'm very aware that the audio revolution of our society is coming. What do I mean by that is, how many people here have a Google Home or an Alexa in their house? Just raise it high, I'm curious. Raise it high, I want people to see this. Google and Alexa, look around. It's a real number. Now, granted, most people are just telling jokes with their Alexa or listening to music. But I want to remind everybody that the first killer app on the iPhone for the first year was that app that looked like you were drinking a beer, if you remember. It takes some time for the apps to catch up to the platform. But we are all very close to being in an era where we order a pizza or where we get our plumber or how and where we navigate by talking to a voice device, not to our phone. As voice becomes the platform and less happens on this, which seems foreign now because we all live in it, but I want to remind you we used to not live in it, and I want to remind everybody here technology likes to move. When, not if, when you start doing a lot of things that you do on your phone right now start happening on a voice device, it will no longer be visual and written, which will lead to less opportunity to grab attention to the current opportunity landscape, which I'm going to remind everybody is quite remarkable. Because if you've got a local bakery now and you can do a really good job on LinkedIn and TikTok for free or on Instagram with money, when in a decade we go into voice and I say, Alexa, send me 6 muffins to the office, Amazon gets to decide which muffins come to the office. Now, if you did such a good job building brand and I knew about Carol's muffins, and I said, Alexa, send me 6 Carol's muffins to the office, you've now accomplished your task. I spend 100,000% of my time on brand. I want people to know my name. I want people to know the name of the things I do. VaynerMedia, my agency. When we killed Mr. Peanut yesterday, which a lot of you heard about, that is us doing brand. That makes you think about Planters. You weren't thinking about it prior to what we did yesterday. We think about it. It's all brand. And so I just want you to get your long tail in it. And this is what's led me to the most interesting conversations in my career because as a businessman, I never thought I would get into categories like parenting and insecurities and self-esteem. But as somebody who just spoke all that and has done that pretty much every day, 600 times a day on the internet for the last decade, it has led me to realize, wait a minute, there's the other component of everything I said. I can show every one of you what to do. I've just sat here and told you 100%, not 99, the 2 attention arbitrage platforms of our society right now. If every person here went home and made 5 to 7 pictures and videos a day on both TikTok and LinkedIn, within a year, something good would happen for the far majority of you. 99% of you won't post on either once after this talk. The question to me became why. That led to the next part. We really need to have a conversation in here about judgment. The far majority of you will not go home today and start posting more on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, not because you don't get, I love when people are like, Gary, I didn't grow up with this technology. I don't get it. I'm like, that's nice, Sue. You didn't grow up driving and you figured it out. It's very cute that you tell me you didn't grow up with this and that's why you don't get it. I am wildly smart enough to understand that you are bright enough to spend 2 hours on an app to figure it out. The reason you're not posting or doing is because there's insecurity about what you're going to say. You go very deep into who's going to care what I'm going to say. What would I say? Who cares what I think? Or even worse, the thing that breaks my heart the most, you actually do post something, somebody leaves a post that you look ugly, and you cripple and fold like a cheap chair. So that's what I spend my time on now, trying to figure out how to get people to realize that the judgment of others has zero actual impact on their lives. They have zero context on your actual life. And how do I get you to understand that perspective, which would then lead to you speaking? And when I say speaking, let me break this down. Let me take out the other excuse of why you, for yourself and your business, aren't posting. Not everybody is great on camera. I get that. Not everybody is so wildly charismatic and very good looking. I get it. However, on the flip side, I am incapable of writing. Not my natural skill. Struggle with reading and writing, not my skill. Plenty of people here are incredible writers, and it is an incredible opportunity to go write 6 to 15 sentences together around a thought on LinkedIn and hit post. Others can work in Photoshop and make a picture. Others enjoy. I don't. I was born in the Soviet Union and grew up in a very Eastern European household. I think there's like 8 pictures of me in my entire youth, right? We didn't take photos, so it doesn't come natural to me. On the other hand, there are people in here who took 97 photos on their iPhone yesterday. There are plenty of people here who are great at taking photos. My question here today, my friends, is very simple. When are you going to start talking? What are you waiting for? If you are not communicating, you don't exist. I believe that. If you are not communicating, you do not exist. More importantly, communicate about what you love. What scares me about the long tail of the internet is I know there's somebody sitting in here who's watched every episode of Friends. Okay? Deeply loves Friends. Can't get enough in their own mind of debating Rachel and Ross. Love the show. Watch it every night to go to sleep to. And I know they make $49, $62, $88, $103,000 a year doing something they don't like. And I know that if they started a podcast about Friends every day when they went home, instead of consuming content to escape the fact that they don't like their job, if they created content around the thing they love, that after 24, 36, 48 months, that along could have came Netflix and been a sponsor of that podcast that would allow them to actually leave that job they hate and now be a full-time Friends podcaster. You don't believe that. I understand that. That seems like a far-fetched story to you. The problem is you don't live my life because I wrote a book in 2009 called Crush It that laid this out, and I get to live the best life now where I get 3 to 6 emails a day.